I'm here today at Hereford Cathedral, and I'm excited to show you this beautiful cathedral. Actually, this video is long overdue. I married Ian in 1992, and we had our wedding reception, one of our wedding receptions here in Herefordshire. And we started visiting England together every year back then. The first cathedral that we went to see together was here, Hereford Cathedral. I have been back here a time or two since then, but not since starting my channel 5.5 years ago. So finally, I'm here to do a video about Hereford Cathedral, and I'm excited to bring you along. But before I take you around the cathedral, let's go back to the beginning of our arrival in Hereford. Now we are headed over toward the cathedral, and first we'll be crossing over Victoria Bridge, which is this lovely bridge here. Victoria Bridge, unsurprisingly, was named after Queen Victoria, and it was actually put here in 1897 in honor of her Diamond Jubilee, celebrating 60 years on the throne. And from the middle of the bridge, you can get this beautiful view of the cathedral tower. This is Castle Green, where the castle used to be here in the city. This large monument is in honor of Horatio Nelson, Vice Admiral in the British Navy. He is known for a battle which nearly annihilated the Marine of France and Spain and confirmed in the eyes of Europe and the world the naval superiority of Great Britain. Now we are headed toward the cathedral again. We just came across this. It has that very ancient stone at the top. This is the site of St. Ethelbert's Well. We are here on a beautiful day. The cathedral is smaller in footprint compared to many British cathedrals, but it is still somewhat famous and popular, known for its chained library as well as housing the Hereford Mappa Mundi, which I will show you in a bit. The Mappa Mundi is the largest surviving medieval world map, measuring over 5 feet by 4 feet. Hereford Cathedral is noteworthy for many reasons. It has been a site of Christian worship for over 1,300 years and is still the seat of the Bishop of Hereford. The building combines Norman and Gothic styles, with parts dating back to the 11th century. Its nave, tower, and beautiful stonework are outstanding examples of medieval craftsmanship. In addition to the Mappa Mundi, it contains one of the world's few surviving chained libraries, where rare manuscripts and early printed books were kept safe by being physically chained to shelves. I will be showing you that a bit later in the video also. And Hereford Cathedral also possesses a copy of the 1217 Magna Carta, one of the few documents in the development of English law and individual rights. The cathedral's link to this historic charter highlights its role in the wider story of justice and democracy. So whether you are interested in religion, medieval treasures, architectural beauty, history, law, or geography, Hereford Cathedral is a pretty interesting place to visit. The original Charter of Liberties, sealed by King John at Runnymede in 1215, is one of the most famous documents in history, regarded as the foundation of English common law and an expression of rights from which grew the concept of the right of freedom of the individual. The 1215 Charter was intended to bring an end to the civil war between John and his barons, but failed disastrously. War was still raging when John died in 1216. With Henry III, a boy of 9, on the throne, a year later, peace was at last agreed and confirmed by the acceptance of the 1217 Charter. Hereford Cathedral's official copy of the 1217 Charter is one of only 4 to survive. The other 3 are all in the Bodleian Library at the University of Oxford. While entrance to Hereford Cathedral is free, with donations gladly accepted, coming to see the Mappa Mundi and Chained Library wing does have a charge, which is currently £7.50. This Mappa Mundi is so special because it is the largest complete world map drawn on vellum, known to have survived from the Middle Ages. Its countries, seas, and rivers look quite different from those on a modern world map. Mappa Mundi is covered with animals and people. Some are familiar and realistic, and some are curious and exotic. In India, an elephant supports the weight of a tower on its back, and a rhinoceros stands head-to-head with a unicorn. In Norway, a skier sporting cozy headwear braves the cold, while in Africa, a line of human-like creatures borders the map. In this version of the world, mythical and real creatures exist side by side. This is a facsimile of Hereford's Mappa Mundi, translated into English. The Hereford Mappa Mundi is a map of the world and heaven as they were understood in the Middle Ages. Today, we seek to know more about other countries, other continents, other planets, and other galaxies. We record our findings in journals, books, TV programs, maps, and the internet. But in 1300, people were just as curious as we are. Medieval scholars sought to acquire and convey knowledge, and they looked for ways to record and represent the world they saw around them. A tradition of circular diagrams or maps containing the places, creatures, and peoples of the world became a tradition. Some of these, like the Hereford map, also conveyed ideas about medieval Christianity. They placed the history, culture, and geography of the known inhabited parts of the world in relationship to God. Here is a version of the Mappa Mundi in 3D, so you can see the topography. The Hereford Mappa Mundi is a medieval world map, the largest one to survive, that was made around the year 1300, and it's thought to have been here at Hereford Cathedral ever since. It is drawn on a single piece of calfskin vellum using pens made from goose quill feathers, ink using oak apple gall, brushes of animal hair, and paints made from pigments mixed with egg. The Hereford map was possibly copied from the one in Lincoln Cathedral. Details local to Herefordshire, like the city itself, standing on the River Wye, have been added. Scholars now believe it was the work of a single scribe, but more than one artist, and another craftsman called a limner who entered the red and gold lettering. Books have always been an important part of life here at Hereford Cathedral. The oldest artifact owned by the cathedral is the 8th century Hereford Gospels. Books were originally kept in a variety of places: cupboards near altars, lecterns. But books for study and learning were often kept in chests, and these could be moved if need be. Chests for the cathedral's books and archives were sturdy and were kept locked. Security mattered because books were rare and very costly, sometimes equal in value to a farm. It wasn't until well on into the 15th century that the cathedral's first dedicated library room was built above the west range of the cloister. This domed chest is from the 15th century. In 1582, a Queen's Commission reported that the library was in a state of neglect, and in 1590, it was moved to the Lady Chapel, and eventually, from 1611, new chained bookcases were provided. And then, in 1996, a new library building was opened by the Queen, and the cathedral's library and archives are housed in this building now. In 1611, when the new chained bookcases were provided, this was the first time that they were stored upright. This was done to save space, and to prevent theft, they were chained to the bars parallel to the shelves. A book could be removed from the shelf and read on the desk below, but not removed from the library. Here are the keyholes where keys come in to unlock all of the bars holding the chains. Thomas Thornton, a canon of Hereford, who was also a leading figure at Oxford University, copied the arrangement first made in Oxford's Duke Humphreys Library around 1599. In my video about Oxford, I show Duke Humphreys Library and the chained books there. This display shows how the chained library works. Books are stored with their spines facing inwards because the chains are attached to their foredges, and most chains contain a swivel to help prevent them from twisting. Books are shelved with the page edges, the foredges, facing outwards rather than the spine, so that their chains don't tangle when they are lifted onto the desk. One end of each chain is attached to the edge of a book's front cover and the other end to an iron bar. For the top 2 rows, the bar is above the sloping desk. From the bottom row, it is beneath it. The desks on the original shelves can be lifted up for access. The chained library contains 227 manuscripts and 1,400 printed books, 56 of them which were printed before 1500. Almost half of the manuscripts came here after the Reformation from the libraries of closed monasteries. A significant number of Hereford's original manuscripts date from the 12th century. They would have been chosen to form the core of a practical reference library. Although many are decorated, a large number of workaday texts have few illustrations. The oldest printed book dates from 1473. The chained library continued to have books added until 1834. Books about theology, philosophy, law, history, astronomy, and mathematics are all within the library. This image is of the birth of John the Baptist. It's from Caxton's 1483 printing of the medieval bestseller, The Golden Legend, and it is one of the oldest printed books in the library. Yes, this vellum is really smooth. It feels very different from paper.
Yeah.
It's just so humbling to think about the fact that so much work went into copying these books. Monks sitting there and copying things by hand before the invention of the printing press. And then just how valuable these books were, that they were put here in this chained library to protect them and preserve them. Even though I have seen it before, I am surprised coming back again to see how big the chained library actually is. It's such a treasure that it's been preserved all this time and kept for us all to see. Back in the time of Henry VIII, there were cathedrals known as Cathedrals of the Old Foundation. 5 of these were pre-conquest icons: London, York, Lichfield, Exeter, and Hereford. One noteworthy feature of Hereford Cathedral is the large cylindrical piers, which are approximately 7 feet in diameter. And honestly, as soon as I walked in the cathedral and saw them, they're very attention-getting, but it's these Norman arches at the top that really took my breath away. They might even be my favorite part of the cathedral. The nave of Hereford Cathedral is, in my opinion, quite stately and stunning. One of the reasons why the Hereford Cathedral nave is special is because of the ceiling. I was mesmerized by the highly decorated vault, which looked like no other cathedral I'd ever seen. I visited this cathedral a few days before Ely, which has an even more highly decorated vault, but Hereford's is unique and extremely lovely in its own right. The massive columns in Hereford remind me of Gloucester Cathedral, though Gloucester's are much taller. I'm no architecture expert, but I think the triforium above the Norman arches of the nave is a beautiful layer which brings the whole room together in a very majestic way. In AD 676, ancient sources show that there was a foundation of a cathedra, a bishop's seat in this area, and in 794, the cathedral became the burial place of St. Ethelbert, King of East Anglia, after he was murdered by King Offa of Mercia. Ethelbert's body was brought to Hereford, and his shrine became a place of pilgrimage. The cathedral is dedicated to St. Mary the Virgin and St. Ethelbert the King. The building dates from about 1100, as the Normans imposed control over the local population and suppressed the Saxon foundation. It has never been a monastery, but has always been served by a college of canons. For many centuries, a resident community of vicars choral sang the services. By 1300, the shrine of St. Thomas Cantilupe briefly made Hereford one of the principal pilgrimage sites of England. In the north transept, there is one of the best preserved medieval shrines still in existence. As Cantilupe's stature began to equal that of Thomas Becket of Canterbury, the income from the pilgrims paid for the imposing central tower, with its distinctive ballflower decoration. The tower originally was topped with a lead-covered timber spire, which survived until 1790. After that, large corner pinnacles were added. The tower is not extremely tall, but it is massive and beautiful. Built in 1325, this noble central tower lends distinction to the Hereford Cathedral building from every viewpoint. This is the Lady Chapel, a jewel in the crown of Hereford Cathedral, and it dates back to about 1240 in its construction. The lancet windows in the Lady Chapel are particularly lovely. This is the north transept, which was built in the 13th century in what was then a strikingly modern French triangular Gothic style, which is also found in Westminster Abbey. This magnificent north window shows on the left the church on earth and on right the church in heaven. It was made in 1864 by John Hardman of Birmingham. This is the tomb or shrine of Thomas Cantilupe. He was canonized as St. Thomas of Hereford in 1320. His cult attracted many pilgrims to the cathedral and encouraged its further enlargement, including the building of the tower. This shrine is a rare survival from the Middle Ages and was restored in 1999, with a canopy being added in 2008. This pennant shows St. Thomas of Cantilupe and St. Thomas Becket, two saints whose shrines are great spots of pilgrimage. I absolutely love these wall hangings, which show images of the life history of St. Thomas Cantilupe. In 1218, he was born in Buckinghamshire. He studied at Oxford and Paris. He became Chancellor of England. He became Bishop of Hereford in 1275 and ministers in his diocese. But then he had a dispute with the Archbishop and was excommunicated. In March of 1282, Thomas set sail for the continent to plead his cause. And in August, he arrived at Orvieto, where he is warmly received by the Pope. At the end of August, he died at Ferento. Many healing miracles are said to have occurred at Thomas's shrine in Hereford. In 1349, his remains are transferred to a new shrine in the Lady Chapel, but in 1550, the shrine was destroyed. Another saint that is associated with Hereford Cathedral is, of course, St. Ethelbert. This early 16th century walkway links the cathedral to the 15th century college cloisters, home to the Vicar's Choral, who sang the daily round of cathedral services. The choir of the cathedral is largely from the 14th century in the decorated Gothic style. The organ pipes are beautiful, and we were lucky to be in the cathedral as the organist was practicing, so I captured a bit of that audio. The choir stalls are built with canopies over each stall. The woodwork is masterfully carved, and the misericords are supposed to be very impressive, but I didn't see many the day I was there because all the seats appeared to be lowered. This is the south transept. The stained glass in the south window was designed by C.E. Kemp and installed in 1895. This chapel here is the Stanbury Chapel. It was built as a place to remember the soul of John Stanbury, who was Bishop of Hereford from 1453 to 1474. I think these are my favorite stained glass windows within the cathedral. They're just beautiful. I'm running out of time, but I feel like I need to go down and visit the crypt. The crypt is really cool, both literally and figuratively. And honestly, one of the things I really like about Hereford Cathedral is that it's just not crowded. I go to a lot of cathedrals, and for a cathedral that's as noteworthy and famous as Hereford is, it's just not on the tourist track. And so you can come down here into the crypt and have it all to yourself, for example. I had the chained library all to myself when I was visiting as well. Pretty nice vaults for a crypt, and interesting to see the bosses, which I'm not sure I've seen in a crypt of a cathedral before. This is the tomb of the Count of Buckingham and his wife. The Denton tomb displays the effigies of Alexander Denton and his wife Anne Willison, who died in childbirth in 1566. We are stopping by the Cathedral Cafe to have some delicious quiche and salads, as well as a cheeky dessert of chocolate banana loaf. It's a lovely cafe inside, and the outside area, especially on a beautiful day like today, is quite pleasant indeed. I definitely recommend a visit to Hereford Cathedral. It is beautiful. Of course, there are many other cathedrals in Britain that I also love and recommend you visit. In the description, I will put links to some of my favorite cathedrals that I have done videos of. And here on the screen, I will link to my 2 most favorite ones. Thanks so much for watching this video, and do something good in the world today.